The web is fantastic because there you can find a listing of some of the worst atrocities carried out in the destruction of culture and the sort of works of genius of the human race. And here we have a book burning roller. I want you to just watch it and read it as these come forward. Slowly absorb what you see. It goes back to antiquity, Zoroastrian scriptures, sorcery schools, religious material, Christian books by Diocletian, the Library of Antioch. In the Middle Ages, we see these things, the Quranic text with varying wording. Abelard forced to burn his own books. The House of Wisdom in Baghdad. The Library and Archives of the Novgorod Republic. It just goes on and on and on. The Maya Sacred Books by Spanish Bishop of Yucatan. Luther's Bible translation. Nothing was sacred, whatever that means. In fact, if you watch this, I think one can only weep as one realizes that, in fact, until the printing press, it was really one step forward and one step back, because all the wisdom was in libraries, and these libraries were burnt as soon as the conquering sort of army arrived. They completely destroyed the wisdom and knowledge of the people that they conquered, expunged it. And so it was only when the printing press came along that it was one step forward, two steps forwards, and then maybe one step back. And when the printing press came along, it was no longer possible to burn all the books. In fact, I think in 1500 they estimated there were only 30,000 books in the whole of Europe. It seems a small number, but maybe it was correct. And a few years later, after printing this, there were 5 million. And so basically, burning books today is like pissing in the wind. Qin Shi Huang. Well, let's talk about burning books. Qin Shi Huang. Beginning in 213 BC, Qin Shi Huang ordered most existing books to be burned, with the exception of those on astrology, agriculture and medicine, divination and the history of the state of Qin. According to the later records, the following year, Qin Shi Huang had some 460 scholars buried alive for owning forbidden books. The emperor's own library still had copies of the forbidden books, but most of these were destroyed later by Xian Yu and burned the palaces of Xianyang in 2006 BC. These are early times. Burning books has been with us for almost ever. Nineveh. The Royal Library at Ashburnipal, the library which was in the great city of Nineveh, the capital of Assyria, now Iraq, contained a huge amount of written works and is famous for leaving behind cuneiform tablets. Here they are, some of them. In about 600 BC, Nineveh fell to a coalition of Babylonians, Persians, and Scythians, Iranians, and burnt. The clay tablets in the library were baked hard and have survived for posterity. They were discovered in the 19th century. This is one and perhaps the only case where book burning actually was great, because these tablets survived till the present time. On previous occasions they were wood or paper or some other parchment, and we've lost those forever. The library in Alexandria. The first known library to attempt to collect every book in existence and store all the world's knowledge was the library in Alexandria. This is an artist's concept of what it looked like. Difficult to know exactly what happened, but it seems to have been destroyed wholly or partly on 4 occasions. Accidentally by Julius Caesar, 48 BC, by the Emperor Aurelian, 270-275 AD, Coptic Christian mob, by decree of a Coptic Pope, AD 391, to destroy all pagan material, and the Muslim conquest about 642 AD. Thus, all knowledge was destroyed, because all knowledge was in books. What have people discovered? Our scholars. And the only place where books were in libraries. Let's talk about Hypatia, an iconic woman and an icon for the Enlightenment. She lived in Alexandria, and at the time, in the 5th century, she was considered to be the greatest living mathematician, a physically beautiful woman, and one of the world's leading astronomers. In fact, this was incredible for a woman at that time. Rachel Weisz plays the part of Hypatia in the film Agora. She lived in Alexandria, a city which was as turbulent then as Baghdad and Kabul are today. She was a teacher and famous as a philosopher and religious thinker who attracted a large popular following. She was killed by Christian zealots in 451 AD, probably because she was not one of them, and it appears that her death lies at the door of one of Christianity's most honoured saints, Saint Cyrus. This is an advertisement for the film, which I advise you all to go and see. And here are some bits of that film. Here, Alejandro Amenabar directs Rachel Weisz as Hypatia on the set of the movie Agora, which I believe was banned in 1 or 2 countries, such as Spain. You should go and see it. Persia. Persia, Iran, was a politically independent state dominated by the Zoroastrian religion. The Arab invasion in the 7th century ended this abruptly, and Islam was instituted as the official religion. When asked by Yazdegerd about the reasons for the unwarranted Arab aggression against the Persians, an Arab soldier said, "Allah commanded us by mouth of his prophet to extend the dominion of Islam over all nations." The huge Persian library of Ctesiphon, the capital city. When the Arab commander Sa'd ibn Abi Vargas faced the huge Persian library at Ctesiphon, the capital city, he wrote to Omar, Caliph, ruler of the Arab Muslims, what should be done about the books? Omar replied that the blasphemous books are not needed. As for us, only the Quran is sufficient. Thus the huge library was destroyed, and the books the products of generations of Persian scientists and scholars, were burned in the fire and thrown into the Euphrates. All Persians were forced to convert to Islam. Persian culture was expunged and Persia ceased to exist. Many fled south to India, where there is still a sizable population of Zoroastrians. The Mongols. The great destruction of the Muslim libraries in 1218 to 1220. When the Mongols under Genghis Khan came west in the 13th century, they destroyed everything in their path, from the steppes of Central Asia to the Caspian Sea and northern Persia. Thus the cities of Bukhara, Samarkand and Merv, and their libraries along with numerous smaller towns, were completely destroyed. The Mongols sacked Baghdad in 1258, destroying the vast libraries, including the House of Wisdom, and massacred the many residents. So Islamic Golden Age, marked by many cultural achievements, came to an end. Here is one of the early manuscripts that has survived. The Crusaders. Crusaders captured Tripoli in 1109, butchered the defeated Muslims and destroyed the Banu Ammar library, at that time the finest Muslim library in the world. About 100,000 books deemed impious were burned. In the sack of Constantinople in 1204, the Crusaders destroyed the last surviving copies of classical work in Europe. It is ironic, is it not, that Persian scholars had converted to Islam and saved as much ancient knowledge as they could by translating it into Arabic, and this was finally destroyed, leaving nothing in Europe. And that is why the Dark Age took hold. Granada. Self-governing Muslims of medieval Spain in 1240 to 1237, the conquered Moors of Andalus had special status and were permitted to have their own communities and courts. According to a treaty in 1492, the Moors were to be allowed to preserve their mosques and religious institutions, to retain their language, and to continue to abide by their own laws and customs. Within 7 years, these terms were broken. Cardinal Cisneros. When the moderate Archbishop of Granada, Hernando de Talavera, was replaced by the fanatical Cardinal Cisneros, mass executions and burning of all religious texts in Arabic were organized. Here are some images from that time. In 1582, the expulsion of the Moors, the Moriscos, as well as Jews from Spain was proposed, but no action was taken until 1609-1610, when edicts of expulsion dictated at every stage by the Church were decreed. An estimated 600,000 Moriscos were deported. The Mayan Codices. Bishop Diego de Landa set about burning thousands of carved images and killing the population. Only 3 Mayan codices, examples of Maya writing, have survived. Here is a painting depicting that particular moment. And here are some of the only things that have been left behind. Absolutely, unbelievably beautiful works of art. Here we see examples of Mayan writing, Mayan imagery. Here are some of the words: bone, spirit, book, woman, to grab, Quetzal. All that was lost. Babelplatz. Book burning by the Nazis. This is a Getty image. Babelplatz on Unter den Linden was designed by Frederick the Great, who was a great patron of the arts. It was a site of a notorious book burning exercise organized by the Minister for Propaganda and Public Enlightenment, Goebbels. More than 20,000 books written by Jews, communists and others, including Marx, Freud, Mann and Heine, were burned. And here we see the demonic faces of people, supposedly good people, burning culture. And it's been like this forever, as people consumed by dogma have wanted to destroy what the human race, the great cultural achievements of the human race. There's a plaque in the floor in Babelplatz as a monument to this disgraceful event which took place in the 20th century. Bureau Bizan. This is an interesting story. In 1928 to 1934, in the far eastern, out-of-the-way corner of the former Soviet Union, a Jewish autonomous region was set up. In 1948, Stalin launched a campaign in which prominent Jewish officials and cultural figures were arrested and imprisoned. And here it is, right at the extreme end, almost, well, it's in Asia really, almost to the east of China even. Some 30,000 books from the Judaica collection of the public library were burned. This anti-Jewish assault in Stalin's last years delivered a mortal blow to the Bureau Bizan experiment. The Cultural Revolution. Mao Zedong decreed a major aim of the Cultural Revolution was to sweep away what were known as the four old things: old customs, old culture, old habits, and old ideas. The campaign started in Beijing on August the 20th in 1966. It was the Red Guards destroyed Chinese buildings, books, paintings, cultural and religious customs, and were considered a manifestation of feudalism. Books were burned and many ancient Chinese cultural artifacts were destroyed forever. People in possession of these items were punished. Many intellectuals who were considered the personification of the four old things were purged from their jobs and harassed, and some imprisoned, and others tortured and killed. This is a picture of the burned out library, the Tamil Library in Jaffna in Sri Lanka. On Sunday, May the 31st in 1981, the Tamil United Liberation Front held a rally in which 3 Sinhalese police were shot and 2 were killed. That night, police and paramilitaries began a pogrom that lasted for 3 days. According to many eyewitnesses, police and government-sponsored paramilitaries set fire to the Jaffna Public Library and destroyed it completely. Over 97,000 books, along with them numerous culturally important and irreplaceable manuscripts, were destroyed. And here is a picture of it. On the 17th of May in 1992, the Serb-led army burned down the Oriental Institute in Sarajevo, destroying more than 5,000 manuscripts dating back to medieval times, recording the history of Bosnia. 3 months later, on August the 25th, the National and University Library in Sarajevo was attacked. 2 days later, the library, shown here, had been destroyed. It is estimated that 1.2 million books were destroyed. It's probably the largest book burning exercise in history.